because we've got all these things that we think we need to be doing from a goal perspective, it causes unnecessary pressure within marriages itself.
Welcome to Our 2 Cents, a podcast about money, real life, and the decisions that shape both. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking about financial goals. Now, I know this is not a subject that most people are like really excited to talk about, right? Especially like entering a new year, 2026. You've got all these goals lined up for your health and your wealth and everything, but financial goals are an area that I feel like a lot of people are lacking in. What do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think oftentimes when we speak to people about financial goals, they either don't know what it is,
Right.
because we've been taught to set goals in so many different areas, but not our finances, right? And when we do talk to people and they've got some inclination of what a financial goal is, it's more high level and they don't really have targeted financial goals, and therefore they never achieve their goals, or they achieve it on a haphazard sort of basis.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times we set financial goals like I want to save X dollar, which is great. You want to save $10,000 or you want to pay off $5,000 in debt or whatnot. But sometimes they just become too overarching. It's like, I want to lose 30 pounds. Okay, well, like, how are you going to get there? Like, if you don't have a plan to lose the weight, if you don't have a workout plan, if you don't have a nutrition plan, then you're likely not going to get there. And that's a lot of what I feel like we see with financial goals too. It's just an overarching idea of where they want to go, which is great that you even have that, because a lot of people don't even have that. They're just living life to the best without any direction, right? So do you have a financial goal that you can think of off the top of your head from our time together that didn't come to fruition?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones was, before I met you, I had this goal: I'm going to buy a house debt-free, right? And so I aspired to buy a house cash. And then all of a sudden we get married and you the one working, and I wasn't working at the time. I was like, this is probably not going to happen, right?
Well, keep in mind too, like the exchange rate from like the currency you had been living with your whole life versus buying a house cash in the US.
Oh,
Completely different.
totally different in terms of, at the moment, I think it's like 16 to 1. And so a house in South Africa might cost $50,000 or $100,000, but over here, like, I mean, you can get a house for that price, but
It's increasingly harder.
oh yeah,
Absolutely.
especially in the day and age. So yeah, I aspired to have a goal, but I think something also important to touch, and that was my goal, right? And so entering into marriage, it's important to have your own goals, but it's even more important, I would say, to have collective goals for the family. Can you think of one maybe where I had a goal or you had a goal that never quite played out?
I think a lot of my goals growing up and even entering into marriage were just too broad, like we've talked about. I mean, I had a pretty solid financial mindset, going into college and coming out of college, used credit card a little bit too much. But I never had like a direction. Like I didn't have steps. I just had, okay, well, I'm going to save X amount of money to put on a down payment for a house when we first got married. But there was no like direction. Okay, like move backwards from that goal. How much per paycheck do I need to be putting aside? What kind of account am I going to be putting this in to make sure that I reach the growth goal that I want to reach? There is one that's really funny that comes to mind when we were first dating. Hope it's okay that I tell this.
You go for it. Go for it.
Lyle had gone, so he was doing some business still in South Africa, and he had gone home for a little while we were still dating. And he had a target goal for like a dollar amount of, he had a book he had just written, and he was talking to a couple different people about selling the book, and he had a dollar amount. And I was here in the States. He was back home in South Africa for that time for a couple months. And he was like, I'm going to sell X amount of dollars. We're going to have this money for our wedding. Like he was so excited. And
it was $10,000. Like she was the one working, so she was providing. But in South Africa, I could legally work. So I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to sell these books. And I think I sold 2.
Okay, and I think in that season too, when we were getting ready to go into marriage and trying to figure out how we were going to make money, is there was too many financial goals. Like you had gone back to South Africa because you could work back there. You were trying to sell these books and build more business over there. And it seemed like everything just kind of got convoluted. And then instead of having like one directed goal, you were trying to spread yourself amongst too many.
Yeah, I think that's human nature. I think that sometimes when something becomes a bit too hard, right, and you don't see traction, you end up pivoting, or you start focusing on something else that you think you can accomplish. And I think the same with financial goals. You might find yourself in a position today, or we found ourselves in positions rather, where we aspire to do certain things, but it just didn't seem possible. And then all of a sudden, I've got this lofty ideas, and I'm going to do all these things, but it wasn't really realistic. And so I would say that could actually be a big deterrent, right? I'm all about big dreams and aspiring to do things, but at the same time, sometimes we are trying to accomplish today things that we should maybe be accomplishing in 3 or 5 years' time. So being a bit more realistic when it comes to what our goals are. And I
Right.
believe that just motivates a person. And for me personally, I've had goals personally, and then also us as a family. But when we've had too many, it just wasn't. We weren't really accomplishing the goals, and it
Right.
just felt demotivating for myself.
Yeah, you're not building enough traction when, especially like in financial goals, when you have those little wins, when you like pay off a little debt here or you save a few $1,000s there, there's something that your brain tells you like you're winning, like you're succeeding, you're meeting that goal. But number one, if you have too many goals, but also if you're setting goals that are not right for your season, like you're setting a goal for a future version of yourself. Like as an entrepreneur, we were setting goals for our business that probably should have been set 5 years from now,
Yeah.
the 5 year version of ourselves versus a goal, set at the 0 month, 1 month version
Yeah.
of ourselves. The goals weren't realistic in that setting and in that season.
I think another one is like when you have kids, things change, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like again, like when we had Evan, we needed to get 2 new cars because the car I was driving
It was
was
not safe.
not safe, falling apart at
And
the
I had been
seams,
in an
right?
accident.
You'd just been in an accident, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden, this unexpected expense came about, and we had to pivot, right? And so all of a sudden, we had certain goals, but I think that's also an important fact. Is just that you need to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be flexible, and so we needed to adapt, and we needed to reassess what our goals were
Right.
because we've got a child on the way.
Right.
And so with the child, what is the most important thing? And that's safety.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to make sure that the child is safe. Fortunately, nothing happened. We never had car accidents or anything like that. But I felt a lot more comfortable driving my son in my newer vehicle. It wasn't a brand new vehicle, but it was a newer vehicle. It was a lot more safe. So if anything were to happen back then, I believe we would have been protected.
So we have, setting too many goals, setting goals that maybe are not appropriate for the season. Also setting unrealistic expectations of your goals. We've talked about in previous episodes how you really have to know your numbers. You have to deep dive into what you're making and what you're spending each month because you have to set a goal that while it can be a stretch goal, you can maybe have a goal that you're going to be able to attain just based off the numbers, and then maybe a stretch goal that would, you'd have to sacrifice some to get to. But I've seen families that will set unrealistic expectations and goals. And then with that, when the goals aren't met, there comes shame or embarrassment. And then you have all these feelings that tie into all these negative feelings that tie into that. And so then there's a negative association to the goal, and then it just starts to crumble from there. What have you seen with that?
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. And then also just the pressure that comes with it. Because, like, again, it's going to speak to it from the guy or the dad's perspective. We are taught we need to provide for our families. We need to be the breadwinners. But if you've got all these things or goals like that's pulling your attention, I've seen friends of mine working longer hours because they feel they need to provide because they've got these goals. So they've got goals for their family. They want to provide and send their kids to maybe better schools. They want to go on vacation. They want to do this. They want to do that. But it means that they are more absent than actually
Yeah.
present with their family. So
Sure.
it causes the time where they are away from their families. But in addition to that, it causes just pressure, like on the spouse, right? Like the husband's expecting the wife in certain instances to do certain things because he's working all the time. And again, each marriage has to work that out. They've got their own set of rules and just how they run their household, right? But I think sometimes because we've got all these things that we think we need to be doing from a goal perspective, it causes unnecessary pressure within marriages itself.
Share that conversation that you had at the conference last week with the individual talking about, how he was called to put his family first.
Oh yeah, that was actually interesting. So I was at a conference last week, and I sat down with a guy. Right, there was a few people at our table, and he's actually a pastor. And he indicated to me that he's in his 60s now, but he's a lot further than what a lot of other pastors seem to be. He's got a building. Somebody gave him a building that cost $3.5 million, but he attributes the success of his ministry to the fact that he made his family a priority. So when his kids were younger, He showed up at every basketball game. He was at every play, every activity. And as a result of that, his kids have turned out pretty well. The one has a PhD, the other one went to Harvard. And so these kids, from a natural perspective, are successful. But even beyond that, they are diligent, they are good stand-up citizens, they are good kids, right? And he attributed that to the fact that he was always present. So he turned down a lot of speaking engagements, he turned down a lot of opportunities which could have been life-changing opportunities, but he chose to put his family first, right? So while everybody else was going and doing certain things and maybe making more money, he decided in this season, he had 18 years with his kids at home, he was going to be focused and he was going to be present. And that changed his family completely. And now that he's older, he's able to do a lot of the things that other people might have been doing earlier on, but he's able to do it. So he feels he hasn't missed out. And I can honestly say, like with myself too, in my careers, I've worked in the corporate space before where I was working 55, 60 hours.
Right.
And that's something we agreed upon when we got married. That just wasn't going to work for us. Like, I can't see myself not being home at a decent hour. I can't see myself not being able to spend time with my kids or going to sporting activities because I'm trying to make money to provide.
To meet the goals.
To meet the goals, right?
Right.
And the ones that we actually have the goals for is actually, like, my goals include you. Like, I want to be a good husband. I want to provide. And for the kids, but if I'm not here, I think we could rather have smaller goals, but me be present.
Right.
And the same with you.
Right.
And to have all these big goals, like buying you a brand new vehicle. And just, you can think of whatever goals you want to think of, but just like these lofty things, right? Which I see quite often. We'd rather have smaller goals in the season that we find ourselves, but be available for one another, but also for our kids.
So there's a really simple roadmap that we can use to walk through goal setting. Okay. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, what season are you in? So are you in a survival season? Are you in a growth season? And are you in reset or are you in reset mode? So, and that's as a family, right? Because as we talk about this, it is important to have financial goals individually, but we will always say that the most important thing is to come together as a married couple and talk about what our goals are individually for ourselves and then collectively for our family, because it is so important that we're intertwined and we're in agreement. We are married, that we're in agreement on those goals. So that's the first question I would ask is, what season are you in? Because your goals have to match the season, as we've said. Too many times people will try to put goals on themselves that just don't fit the stage of life that you're in. If you're in survival season, you're not going to be saving thousands upon thousands of dollars in a savings account. And that's okay. And that's a thing that I think we hear often in this financial space is there's an expectation. You need to have $1,000 savings account and you can't be going out to eat ever in your life. And all the crazy things that we've heard of when it relates to people's finances, because, personal finances are just that. They're personal. They are personal finances. And why we may not agree with the next couple's decisions and how they spend their money, that's their decision. As long as they're taking care of what they need to take care of for their family, that's their decision. So once you identify the season of life, you have to define the why. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think knowing your why when it comes to a goal will keep you motivated.
Sure.
So again, like I know we've touched on this, like we've had all these goals and some of them are great goals, right? So most of the goals that we have set in the past are good for our family, but knowing the why and then tying it back to the season that you find yourself in is key. What I've personally found for myself, when I know why I want to accomplish something, in the days or times that I don't feel like doing the thing, if the why is big enough, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So we've got a goal to, let's say, be debt-free, right? But at the same time, we've got goals to travel. If our goal was purely to be debt-free, when opportunities to travel would come about, we probably wouldn't do it. But we've got a number of goals which are equally important to us. And as a result of that, when the why pops up, if it doesn't align with our set goals, we are not going to do it. So I would eat out a lot, right? I know that you get healthy eating out and you get unhealthy eating out, but I would probably eat out more because there are healthy places you can go and eat out at. However, if we were going to do that, we could end up spending hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars on a monthly basis on food at the expense of being able to travel, at the expense of being able to send our kids to good schools, at the expense of you name it, right? But because we've got these other goals, when the why pops up, when a friend or a family member wants to go and eat out, we're not going to say no all the time, right?
Right.
There's going to be seasons we might have to say no, especially if we're getting closer to the accomplishment of a goal. Or we might say in the season, we can eat out once a month or twice a month.
And we include the kids on that discussion as well. I mean, even recently, I was driving the kids home from school, and they wanted to get something, and I said no, and then I gave the reasoning behind why I said no, and talking about an upcoming trip that we have, and we're saving this money so that we can enjoy a particular outing on the trip. So it's been interesting to watch their response, and cool to see how they're starting to understand how our goals work. Their gauges, like, they're constantly in flux. In one season, we're home more, we're saving more, we're investing more. And in another season, we might be traveling more. 2026 is very full. It's just kind of how everything fell. And so 2026 will be more money spent on travel than a typical year. But, we plan for that, and we prepare for the fluctuation of our goals. We're getting closer to one, and then we might back off a little bit on that one and then bump one up a little bit more too. So the why, and as cheesy as it sounds, I always tell people, write down your why. If you want to pay off a $5,000 credit card, write down, I want to pay off the $5,000 credit card because I can sleep better at night, because I won't feel sick to my stomach every time I swipe my card, because I'll be able to spend that money on a vacation, because I'll be able to buy a great Christmas present for my child, whatever it may be. Putting that in front of you, I know it sounds cheesy, y'all, but having the feeling attached to the why, because we can say, oh, I want to do it because I want to be debt free, because I want to be happier. But when you really dig deep and do the 7 layers of why, keep asking yourself why after each question, then you really identify the emotion behind the goal. And that really is what's going to drive you to keep going, and to say no when your friends want to go out to an expensive dinner, and to say, maybe I'll join the girls' trip next year, but not this year. That will get you so much further.
So if I were to ask you, like, what's a small habit that people could implement when it comes to accomplishing their goals? Again, because when we started out, we never had goals, right? Let's just be honest. We had no goals. So we didn't know that we had goals, or we might have had, but now that we've grown in our personal finance walk, and as we've educated ourselves regarding these things, what's a small habit that you've implemented? And I'll share one that I've implemented too.
I think too many times we try to overhaul our lives when it comes to all the goals, weight loss goals. You get up in January 1st, and you're like, I'm going to go work out, and you go to the gym for 2 hours for the first week, and then an hour for the second week, and then 45 minutes. And then by the time March rolls around, you're not going to the gym at all. We have this need to feel like we're accomplishing something very quickly. I mean, we live in a very fast food culture of we want things now, and we want to see the progress now. So I think too many times people try to overhaul their lives too quickly. They try to meet their goals too quickly, and then they crash and burn very fast. So I would say you pick one weekly goal and one habit that supports that goal. So if you're saving, let's say, $1,000 to go on a trip, I would look at, if it were me, I would look at how many times am I ordering Amazon? How many times am I eating out in the month? How many times am I going out for entertainment purposes? So all of those little extra things, how many times am I stopping at Starbucks? All those little extra things, and say, okay, this month I'm going to go to Starbucks twice. I am going to do a girls' dinner once instead of twice. I'm going to do, a date night twice instead of maybe 3 times, or whatever it may be. Is looking at what are those little habits you can change, and you have to stick to that and identify what the excess is going to be, whether it's weekly or biweekly or monthly, whatever is easiest for you to track. Because again, we're not going to dictate how you do this.
Yeah, definitely.
We can tell you what works for us biweekly because we get paid biweekly, but you have to look at what works for you and then start putting that excess aside. And when you do it for 1 month, or you do it for a week, let's start there. And then you do it for 2 weeks, and then you do it for 1 month, and then you start seeing how much you're not losing by cutting things out. And then maybe you want to pick up, maybe you love pets and you want to pick up dog walking. I did dog sitting in a season, not too long ago. So maybe you pick up a little bit of extra income here and there. Yeah. I mean, it was $150 this little bit and $100 this little bit, and all of that adds up. So my tip would be identify what are a couple little things, little habit tweaks you can make regarding your spending. Identify how much that's going to save you. And then each week or biweekly or monthly, you move that aside to a high yield savings account so it can start growing, and then reevaluate for the next month or the next time period of what are these tweaks. Maybe you have a birthday coming up and you're going to spend a little bit more. Where can you pull back a little bit? And that's the kind of momentum that's really going to get you going and feeling the change and seeing the growth of your savings account or seeing the difference in your bank account. Once you start implementing that, and it's just like working out, once you move that muscle and you get it going, like, it's going to be fire. You're going to, see a huge change by the end of the year.
Yeah, I would say make sure that it's your goal, right? If you are single, that it's your goal. If you are married, that it's your goals, right? As the husband and the wife. And what I mean by that is that quite oftentimes you can have a goal that you've actually allowed other people to create the goals for you, right? If you are somebody that's always wanting something because you think it's going to impress other people,
Right.
is that really your goal? Right? Because I mean, back in the day before we met, like I had certain aspirations and things that I wanted to do. But now that I think back about it, like I just wanted those things because I thought people would like me more. So before we got married, I had wouldn't say a low self-esteem, but I did a lot of stuff to impress people, right? People call it the fear of man, right? I wanted to please people. So a lot of my goals and the things that I wanted in life, or that I thought I wanted in life, now that I think about it, was shaped by what I thought others would think of me.
And even it can be people you don't like, content creators. Like,
Oh, 100%.
we're driven by people we don't even know in real life, or financial influencers. Like, are you creating your goals based on what you think some random person's opinion, like that you're listening to?
Yeah, so you're creating content, and if I post a particular thing, oh, I got the new car, or oh, I did this, and I'm getting the likes, are we living off that? Is it really something that I want, right? So I want to encourage people just to identify what your goals are. And then, as Brittany touched on earlier, take it to the emotional level, like with peeling back the 7 layers and asking yourself, why do I really want this thing? And that's when you're going to actually truly identify whether or not it truly is a goal for you. Is it really important to you? And if it is, then you're going to put into place the practical steps that Brittany shared a few moments ago with regards to what you need to do to get there. So again, if it's your goal as an individual person, but if you're married, I encourage you to have joint goals. And I'm not saying that I don't have goals and that Brittany shouldn't have goals. We've got couple goals, we've got family goals, and then we do have individual goals. But at the same time, it's just important to know why that is a goal, because that will be, again, your why. That will ensure that you do what you need to do in order to see it come to pass. And you're not going to be shaped like, okay, this is what everybody else is trying to do or they're doing in the season, so we need to be doing it too. Because again, we live in this digital age, right, where people are doing such a lot of things, and we could so easily just pivot, and all of a sudden everybody's buying condominiums, so everybody's buying a particular vehicle, and we want it too. But do we really want it? Is it going to add, like we had a discussion before this about bigger houses, right? About, would it be nice? Yeah, probably. But is it going to bring us true happiness? Probably not, right? It's not a goal
For
in
us.
this season for us.
It might for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for somebody else, that might be what they want and that they aspire to have, and go for it. I'd say go for it. But for us in the season, we've got a decent size house. It works for our family. But at the same time, our mortgage payment that we have enables us to do a lot more other things. If we could buy a house where the mortgage is double, maybe even triple, I don't know, I haven't done the numbers, but just buying the house, I'm not going to be more happier. And all of a sudden, we can't travel, we can't visit family in South Africa, we can't take the kids to a sporting event and make memories. That's what our goals are. And again, so what I hope people are getting out of this episode is that it's a personal thing.
Sure.
It shouldn't be shaped by other people, right? And if you have allowed other people to shape your goals, I want to just tell you, draw a line in the sand, clean slate, start today, and identify what your goals are for you and for your family, and then put these practical steps into motion, and you'll actually start enjoying life. And again, the great thing about goals are, if you set them and they are realistic, and yes, we do have some stretch goals too, but if you set small ones to start off with, as you start accomplishing your goals, it just becomes more fun. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh man, like you can also look back. Like I look back at some of our goals that we've had in the past, and it was like, when you're starting out, it's like, I don't know, I'm going to get there. But when you tweak certain things and all of a sudden you've accomplished it, it just makes life fun.
Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up today, I have our 2 cents question of the day. Today's question is it appropriate to have a conversation with your boss using memes?
Like texting?
Or on Teams?
Yeah, so it depends, right? So, like, I am some people's boss and I communicate with memes. I'm going to say yes. Depending on who my boss is, depending on the relationship, I would think it's fine.
Yeah, you got a pretty cool boss.
I got a great boss. She's
So-
probably the best boss I've ever had.
Yep. So I would say the definitive answer is yes.
Yeah.
Communicate with memes, make life a little bit more fun, laugh a little bit more, and emojis too. I'm going strong. Millennials, keep those emojis, man, and LOL in text messages.
How do we say LOL in our house?
We say LOL.
Lol.
With that, we'll see you next time.